Welcome to Making an Impact. I'm Katie Mills, the head of Zygo Power at Schneider Electric, and in this podcast, we meet incredible individuals from a range of industries to discuss the exciting projects they're involved with today, their career journey today, and ultimately what impact their work is having on the world. In this episode, we are making an impact with Dan Drogman, CEO of Smart Spaces, who saw a need for sustainability and wellness in workplaces and came up with white label IoT platform solutions to connect occupiers to their building community and systems. With home and hybrid working becoming more common, many office-based employers are reconsidering their current workplaces. Are they economically and ecologically viable? And what sustainable practices can be implemented to match the change of the working environment? So welcome, Dan, to Making an Impact.
Thanks for having me.
So first of all, CEO, Smart Spaces, how did you get to this place? What's your background? What does your career look like? And ultimately, what made you take the plunge, right? And kind of jump into the world of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, certainly. So I started in the industry in 2004. And so I can't believe it's over 20 years now, which is really, really scary. And Smart Spaces is now a 15-year-old business at the end of this month. So yeah, it's gone so quick. But I studied as a software developer. And I got my first job working for an agency that worked in commercial property. But actually, the software is very different. It was more data rooms to sell assets. So if you're selling a hotel and you want to do the due diligence on the hotel, we'd build the data room where we'd track which documents you look at, who's looked at them, make sure that they've signed a non-disclosure agreement before they access the data room, and really market those assets. So it was far more marketing than operational. Mm-hmm. And that grew really quickly, but it wasn't my business. I was working for another business at the time, and I had two really great bosses, the best bosses I could have had coming out of uni. And I just had aspirations to do more. And sort of an accident that happened was my brother also studied to be a software developer, but was making more money as an electrician. So he still graduated, got a better degree than I did, and went straight into being an electrician full time. We've both still lived at home at the time, and I come back home one day and said, look, I've got some maternity cover. Would you be interested? Fully expects him to say no, because he's earning way more money than he would in doing this maternity cover as a programmer. And he went, do you know what? I'm sick and tired of being up and down ladders in bad weather. And, I did study to be a programmer. It'd be nice to
use it.
Yeah, exactly. And so he come in, and it was quite embarrassing, really, because I set him 2 weeks worth of work and he completed it in half a day. And I was like, I'm not as good a programmer as I thought I was. And it was quite embarrassing.
Humbling experience.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think it even clicked then. I was thinking, wow, this is good. Like, us together. Because I was still doing I was sort of a hybrid role, it's a small business. So whatever I sold, I programmed with my team. So that was great. He joined us, end up staying on when, Rebecca returned from maternity leave, and we were going great guns. And we had a few customers that never got to meet the other side of the business because all they bought was digital services. And they started to say, oh, you and Tom ever thought about going out on your own? And was like, yeah, no, we have. And eventually got to 2010. So I was 6 years in the business. And we said, yeah, let's go out and do it on our own. And we ended up working for a flexible office operator, so the WeWork of its day, a company called Target Space. And we paid our rent by developing software, so booking systems, billing systems, support ticket systems, a whole host of different things to manage an office. And that led us to winning a project to build a booking system for Marriott hotels, which was a multilingual booking system for their conferencing space. And that's probably where we started to get interested in Smart, because they had aspirations around your invite automatically loading when you enter the conference venue. And so we got introduced to Apple, who got us into the iBeacon program when iBeacons had literally just come out. Mm-hmm. So indoor positioning was just becoming a thing. And we was getting really excited about that. But we developed this for another software company. And so we didn't own the IP. And so we were sort of working really hard day in, day out to deliver software, but we could never really reap the benefits of what we were building. And it meant that we had to build software for other companies at the same time. we've done a good job, actually. Built a peer-to-peer foreign exchange platform, which we listed in Canada on the stock exchange. We built a huge e-commerce platform, which the company we built it for sold for millions. We built a recruitment platform. Like they were all, but they were so disparate. And I think only in your 20s and your 30s do you have the energy and stamina to learn new sectors.
Yeah.
But we always felt at home in real estate because we'd started in real estate.
Yeah.
We always felt at home. When we was in e-commerce, as much as we'd done a great job and it sold for millions, we were blagging it a little bit. And with the FX and doing the fintech platform, fintech people still have me on LinkedIn because it still has my history on LinkedIn. And I never felt like I was a native. I felt like I was someone sort of hacking it. And it was a successful platform. The platform's still live now, midpoint.com, but didn't feel at home. And when I looked back at what we enjoyed, and I think, work's a lot about what you enjoy. One of our values at Smart Spaces is passionate and enthusiastic. And if I looked at what I was most enthusiastic and where we were definitely the leaders was in the booking systems and applying smart to that. And so that's where sort of Smart Spaces was formulated, and haven't looked back since. And that's all we do now. We don't, all those other platforms have gone. My grey hair hasn't turned back to brown again, which is a shame, but it's, I'm certainly in a better place. And actually it's so nice to put all of your resources into one product. You can truly make it the best product in the market.
So then Smart Spaces. What is Smart Spaces? What does it do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Smart Spaces is a smart building operating system. So it's a method for commercial real estate to operate their buildings. So these buildings, especially ones that are relevant in a post-pandemic era, have a wealth of amenity. They're typically multi-let because not many companies will take a whole building nowadays. And you've got to attract these people to the office to want to use the office and want to go to the office. And the employers have that challenge. But what landlords can do is help those employers attract talent back into offices. And that's by, in our platform, providing a smart building app, which every employee, every user of the building has on their phone. It's their mobile pass, so it's their method of physically accessing the building. No longer do you need a plastic card. If they invite a visitor, that's how they send the visitor through the app or through our Outlook plugin. And what it does, it wraps up all of that amenity and delivers it back to the end users. And in the early days, we were second guessing what the tenants or the companies that worked out of these buildings wanted. We were just working for the landlord. So we wrapped up the landlord services. As soon as we started deploying this to these landlords' buildings, the tenants turned around and said, well, we want it to do this, this, and this. We want all of that, but also we want our desk booking, our meeting room booking. We want to understand how much energy we're consuming, how much we can save energy. How often do our employees use this space? How do we get them to use it more? Are we using it efficiently? And so they end up taking the platform to the next level. And now our company's growing equally as fast in the landlord space as it is in the enterprise space.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Awesome. And how have you seen, we hear smart everything, right? Smart grid, smart spaces, smart homes. How have you seen smart offices evolve, since you started, I suppose?
Yeah. So when we first started on this journey, and we were really fortunate, like all the way through our careers, our clients have been early adopters or what you'd call pioneers.
Yeah.
And so they would throw us the keys to their buildings. Like it's crazy when I think about it. One of our first projects, the client literally just gave us the remit to go to their flagship office building in central London and come up with a plan of how we can improve it by deploying smart technology, which is, it's great. So and what we noticed straight away was how siloed all the systems were in the building. So your access control system was standalone. Your visitor management system was standalone. Your lifts, standalone. Your HVAC and MEP, standalone. Lighting system. And it even come down to silly things like we'd walk into a room and you'd see two different PIRs and be like, why have you just got one? Like they're doing the same thing. It's like, oh no, one's for the lighting systems, one for the BMS. And we're like, why should you use the same sensor? Oh no, they don't talk to each other. And then the light bulb clicked. It was like, right, we're onto something here.
Mm-hmm.
If we join these systems up, you can make the building perform so much better. And to sort of run you through how that works in practice is and someone badges into the building, we can call the lift, show on the app which lift is going to arrive, how long it's going to take to arrive. No longer do you press the button, it says C3, you talk to your friend, you forget, you're like, press it again. It will stay on the homepage of the app until the lift arrives. And so you've improved that arrival experience. Then you can deploy QR codes for visitors. If you have a VIP visitor, we can take you straight from the street to seat without you having to stop at other floors and be confused where to get off. When you enter the space, we can enable the space, so we can bring the lighting on, the fresh air into the space, so you're not wasting pumping fresh air into empty spaces. And then when the people leave at the end of the day, because we know the working patterns, we can adjust the time schedule to be tighter to save the energy. So by taking all these disparate silo systems and bringing them together, and it just keeps extending and extending. Now, the first time our system comes online is when you book the space, but second to that is when you drive into the car park, or you bring your cycle into the cycle park, and it's from literally your journey into the building, being in the building throughout the day, then leaving the building. We've created a very joint up experience, which is as optimized as possible. And there's two things there. It's our purpose at Smart Space is optimizing optimizing environments for people and planet, and you're optimizing your day in the office, but also optimizing how the building performs. And that's what smart means to me in commercial real estate. And sorry to go on so long.
No, I think it's really important to kind of clarify, because I do think people have there are many different views on what smart means, right? And how we make things smart, shall we say. When you're talking there, the word that comes to mind a lot for me is efficiency, right? By bringing these systems together, by creating one, I suppose, holistic view of a building, surely you can drive significant efficiencies. What have you seen in the buildings that you work on? What kind of efficiencies can you drive?
Well, it depends how often the building is used, because you can literally sometimes it could be 90% if they don't occupy the space and we're switching the space. So Christmas is a great period for us because the spaces we enable are switched off largely. It's just frost protection. So when people start to come back in, they've actually saved a 90% in that period. But then when the building's occupied, and obviously we're seeing a lot of our clients start to stipulate 4-day working weeks, it does mean to a certain extent some of our savings diminish, but then you are using the real estate. There's no wastage there. So there the optimization becomes a lot tighter. So we can range from anywhere from, say, on average, a 5% year 2 once we've optimized the space, and it typically starts out at around 25 to 30% year 1.
And so when we speak efficiency, naturally, the other word that springs to mind for me is the sustainability side of things, right? And I, digital plus sustainability, naturally, I think everywhere go hand in hand. How have you seen your customers' view on their building shift as, sustainability has become more of a forefront issue, shall we say?
Yeah, some of them have shifted as much as we'd hoped, actually, which is quite disappointing. And so the tactic we've deployed there is benchmarking. So what we've found is if we show you how badly behaved you are versus the best tenant, that has been hugely successful. We've found that when we show what they are versus the nearest tenant, there's an opportunity for them to actually change their behaviour, because it's naming and shaming.
Guilt trip.
Yeah.
Ultimately, which sometimes is needed, right?
Yeah.
To make sure people are doing what they need to be doing.
Also, applying pounds and pence helps.
Yeah. Cost. Absolutely. Tell us then a little bit more about the kind of buildings that you have worked on, especially from that sustainable angle.
Yeah, so funny enough, the misconception around smart spaces is that we work on lots of shiny new buildings only, and we don't. And actually, funny enough, a lot of our buildings are, because that's when the budget's there to deploy software like us. But we're very lucky to work with landed estates, large real estate portfolios. And if you look at London's makeup, it's mostly historical buildings, really. And so retrofit's a huge thing for us. And that's just becoming more and more easy to do and more cost effective. And obviously that's where we love partners like Schneider Electric, where they've made retrofit possible, and you can actually upgrade legacy BMSs and bring them into the current sort of cutting edge systems that are getting deployed today. And so we can do retrofit, but we find the downside of retrofit is how long it takes. Is time. Because when you've got the commitment of a main contractor to meet a deadline, and there's a huge amount of resource there, and the building's a building site, you're not working with people in occupation. It's far easier than, trying to get a ladder at the weekend and install a sensor over someone's desk.
Yeah. Okay. And so when we speak about retrofit, in the built environment, especially in the UK, as you said, we have an aging housing stock, right? We have a pretty old housing stock that some of these buildings do not lend themselves to sustainability, shall we say. Super inefficient, there's no insulation. How do you tackle that? What do you do? Where do you start, I suppose, is my question.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we only work in the commercial space at the moment, but watch this space. And yeah, there are a lot of legacy office buildings which suffer with heat loss. And it's all around in our platform how we optimize the on and off of the HVAC equipment. So how long do we need to leave before the first person arrives for it to reach set point? And if we can get that data and put that in front of the landlord, we can actually build a business case for them to actually invest in insulation, because we can say, look, actually, this is the business case. You're losing this by having to heat this building from this time, and then you lose this much heat in this amount of time at the end of the day. Look at that cost in terms of electricity you're paying and the carbon impact, and what if you was to invest in insulation. And actually a lot of our clients have invested in some really innovative cladding solutions or secondary glazing, because a lot of these buildings are listed, and we've seen a remarkable improvement, but at least we're giving them hard numbers to be able to go off and do that, whereas in the past it was hard for them to build a business case.
Yeah, and throughout this podcast, I think one of the key things that comes up time and time again when we're speaking about challenges around sustainability is around the need for collaboration, right? It's not one organization can fix all the challenges that we have in the built environment. How have you seen that shift over time? How have you seen organizations collaborate better and come together to solve challenges?
Oh, I mean, that's how our business functions, because Smart Spaces is purely a software platform. We manufacture no hardware whatsoever. And so we rely on our partners like Schneider Electric and the access control companies who work with the lift manufacturers. And we have to forge deep relationships with these companies and become partners and help sort of evolve our roadmaps together and leverage all the great tech. I think, Schneider Electric have been putting some really smart technology into buildings for a long, long time. And it's quite crazy that some of these features that have been there are only being unearthed now. And we're a great partner of unearthing those features and saying, you do realize that we can optimize this building with the hardware you already have. You haven't got to spend a penny on the infrastructure. It's all around the software that you need to deploy.
Amazing. And so thinking of the future, smart buildings is one thing. You kind of mentioned smart campuses to me before. What is a smart city? We hear that term a lot. I've heard it a lot. And for many years, actually, right? The term smart city has been a concept for some time. What does it mean to you? What is a smart city?
Definitely, I think it would be not having 20 different parking apps on my phone.
Oh, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I'm always going to the car park thinking, which app is this one?
What one is this? Oh, and then it always ends up being one that I actually miraculously don't have. And I'm like, I've got to download another one now.
Yeah, and it's quite scary to see how many my number plate and credit cards are in and stuff. And but certainly that would be, and I think, should you even be thinking about that? I mean, as much as I don't like being charged to park or charged to cross the Dartford Bridge and this congestion charge, I do like the congestion charge and Dartford is very passive. It's something you haven't got to think about. And I think when I think of a smart city, that's what I want. Should I even be having to faff around and get my Apple Pay card out to go through onto use Oyster to get onto a tube? Can the barriers just open? So many times. I mean, obviously I'm a commuter and commuters can be easily frustrated. And you see someone where, bless them, the Face ID hasn't worked and their card hasn't unlocked the door in time. And the queue backs up. And I think the evolution of this has got to be for it to all happen in the background. And you have a streamlined sort of day where you're not thinking about where's my wallet, where's my phone. Everything is optimized without you having to do anything.
I always think that technology works best when you don't even know it's there, right? It shouldn't even be visible. You shouldn't even realize that it's technology that's helping you do something, and that's when you know it's kind of doing what it needs to do.
100%. And actually, one thing I want to get across is that a lot of people think, because the app is the main way we communicate with our users and how they engage with our platform, a lot of clients sometimes get fearful that we're trying to force an app onto the users of their building. And trust me, if we've got another way we can do it, that's how we do it. And a great case in point is, if I was to invite you to my building, I don't need to go into my app to invite you. I just copy you in. So when I send the invite to you, I copy in visitors at building name or visitors at smartspaces.com, and you get sent the QR code. That's the only effort I've had to do, is add a CC email address into my invite for you to come to the building. I don't want to force you into an app and you have to go to a page where you fill out a form. We want this to work in the background as much as possible. And so what we sort of see an evolution will be, it'll move to wearables, smart glasses, ultra wideband. And yeah, the app is just the interface for the moment. We don't believe that will be the interface forever.
So then let's look to the future. If you have your crystal ball in front of you right now, what does the smart environment, shall we say, or smart buildings, what do smart buildings look like in 20 years, 30 years from now? Where do you see things kind of moving from a technology perspective?
Well, I think if we really are serious about saving the planet, they won't be single use. It will be mixed use. And that makes it even harder to manage. So we've got this operating system deployed at the moment, and a lot of our buildings are mixed use. And when I talk about mixed use, there's a huge leisure element. So there's gyms, there's restaurants, there's cafes. But I think we are going to bring that residential layer in as well. And it would be great if a lot of these empty office buildings could be used at weekends for other uses. And so I think smart cities and tech platforms will emerge to make sure everything gets utilized as much as it possibly can. And you don't just have these huge waste of energy and space that lay dormant. And I think that also helped with obviously a growing population as well. I think technology will become far more passive. I think possibly we'll become more comfortable with biometric. Do you even need a wearable? If as long as you own your identity and you give a city or a campus the permission to access your identity for the time you live there, and you're happy with the policies there, you'll walk around a city, and like we described earlier, everything will just happen for you. So it is quite scary at the same time, but I think we'll get there. I think as long as we can have trust and people don't abuse it, it will definitely become more passive.
Do you need help calculating and tracking your carbon emissions? Use Zygo Activate decarbonisation software to calculate Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, track your progress, and reduce your carbon footprint. Search Zygo Activate and request your free demo today. A couple of other things that I wanted to ask you about was change in usage of buildings, right? Especially in commercial buildings. Post a COVID world, naturally buildings, the use of buildings has shifted from an employer perspective. What shift have you seen? And I appreciate we mentioned kind of people are now going back to what it was, but that shift in usage, what have you seen there, and how has that impacted, the energy usage of a building, or how efficient a building has been, kind of pre and post COVID?
Yeah, so we have in our platform, we have a feature called stacking, and stacking is where our desk booking system will optimize on days with low occupancy to move people into smaller spaces to disable other spaces within a building. It depends how many floors you have. If you've only got a single floor, it'll be how much your MEP is broken down into zones so we can enable and disable spaces. But in the larger scale buildings we work, this will mean bookings are only available on floor 12 until we reach critical mass to make energy savings there. And that's a huge piece around the energy saving, and that's probably where most of the energy is being wasted, is where these huge spaces are heated 5 days a week, and sometimes 7 days a week, or cooled 7 days a week. But coming back to things outside of the energy side of things, it's amenity. It's that you've got to attract the employees back to the office, and you've got to wrap up and show what amenities you have. And so some clever tactics deployed by clients. A lot of them have invested in putting gyms into the office space so people can come in and go to the gym, having a really nice coffee offer. But one of the great things about a platform like Smart Spaces is when you start to add these new elements to your real estate, we can track their effectiveness. And many have second guessed it wrong. Many a client has put cinemas in, and everyone's got a really high-end HD TV at home. Sadly, the cinema's been a waste of money. But at least we track how many people have accessed it and used it. So when they develop a new scheme or they refurbish that building, they don't invest in that. And that's why I'm pro cinema, by the way. I love the cinema. I was in the cinema with my daughter last week. But the data doesn't lie at the end of the day, and you're comparing the gym versus a cinema versus a breakout area for co-working. We can see what gets used, but so you've got to wrap up and bring in a whole host of new amenities. And if you look at any new office building being developed now, any building being refurbished, they're bringing in really nice open terraces because people want diverse spaces to work in, biophilia, giving people options. So one of the nice things we do on our platform is on the floor plan, we can run a cool zone, a warm zone, a hustling, bustling, noisy zone, and a peaceful zone, and you can choose what type of zone you want to work in. We give you control of the lights above your desk, so you can either have the really nice warm lighting, which most people like to work under, but we do have some crazy software developers that like to work in the dark, or people who like that really stark white kebab shop lighting, which we always find an interesting one on our when we're looking at the analytics. But you're getting more customization, and what that is that the fact that at home you've been in control of your environment. So we're trying to give you that back in the office, and it even comes down to hygiene, because we run surveys for our platform, and we were looking at reasons why people don't come back to the office, and hygiene was a huge one. And they said, look, when I go to the toilets, it's disgusting. There's half of someone's mess there from when they've just left. And so one of the features we put into the platform, we again, didn't want to waste money on additional sensors if we didn't need to. We noticed that we were already interfaced with the lighting control system. There's conveniently a PIR per cubicle. And we started to map that. So we'd build up a chart over the day. So all the different toilets across the floor of the building as they get used. And then we would work with the cleaning team to understand when the perfect trigger point would be, when it requires cleaning to get ahead of someone making a complaint. And we built up this chart, and when it reaches critical mass, so it reaches a point of where it needs to be cleaned, it notifies a cleaner claims it, resets that chart, and it means that you never get complaints that there's a disgusting toilet, and people don't really notice it, but it's the fact that you're not going to, on the next survey, you shouldn't expect to see someone. But the best thing about that on an energy saving standpoint is you're not cleaning the toilets on quiet days as much as you would be on busy days. And you're not ordering more products than you need to clean these spaces. So it's a win-win, and it utilises something that's already there, the lighting network. And we funny enough, once we built that, we realised that actually it works quite nicely in the taller buildings, the bigger buildings we work on, to show shower availability. So if you're cycling in, you can make sure there's a space. And also if you're coming down in the lift, you can see you're not going to be waiting in a changing room for a shower, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I'd like a gym and a creche. If I had those two things, a nursery that I could drop my son off in the morning and pick him up, I'd be there every day. Every day.
No, I'm really surprised you don't see that more commonly, actually.
Yeah, I think I'm hopeful as a full-time working mum, and as more and more we have that kind of, I suppose, diversity when it comes to kind of family life. I'm hoping there will be a little bit more of that in the future, right? Where there'll be more of we want to bring people back. Childcare is one of the biggest challenges I think a lot of us face. So if you've got the option, I'll salary sacrifice whatever you want for someone to, take my child at work every day and give him back to me at the end of the day. So that would be one for me, please.
No, interesting.
If you can put that on your roadmap, that would be great.
Yeah, no, certainly. Yeah, I wonder what sensors. I'm always thinking what sensors I could attach to my son and daughter to make sure they're okay. But it's don't want to take it too far.
Yeah, 100%. So we've spoken a lot about the business, the industry. If there was one thing that you could change right now when it came to the built environment, what would it be?
I would say that the thing I would change is the real estate that's been, I suppose, the forgotten real estate. I would probably change the planning consent to enable developers to redevelop these and repurpose these buildings, and take away the restrictions. Because you can still walk around this city and feel that it's very run down in areas, and I'm talking not even like deprived areas. I'm talking central business districts, where you can walk past one ultra shiny new skyscraper, and the next you've got a dilapidated concrete building. I think I would change planning consents to incentivize people to repurpose these buildings, and I think that will. They also need to be mixed use as well. I think that they, I think Canary Wharf's a great case in point, actually, the way they've managed to transform that into both a business district and a residential district. And I think we need to see more of that. And it doesn't have to just be residential. It could be a whole host of other uses. The schools within the city are hugely oversubscribed. Why don't we have more schools? Like you say, that would help with some of the childcare, and you get to commute with your children, spend a bit more time with them. And so I think, there's definitely...
could be a bad thing, depends on the child, I suppose.
No, certainly. No, totally. Yeah, and depends on the way you I use a central line, so I don't know how that would work getting home. But, but that'd be I think if we can make it more interesting, exciting for developers to repurpose buildings.
Okay, so final question, and it's the one I ask everyone, is you're working in a space that is obviously having a huge impact on a big piece of our society that has a pretty big carbon footprint, right? Let's be clear. The built environment, we know it does. It's one of the biggest emitters. When you think to 50 years from now, 60 years from now, you're no longer, well, maybe you will be here 60 years. Let's go a bit further out. Maybe 100 years from now, let's say. And, kids and grandkids are talking about granddad. What's that one thing that you want to leave behind? What's that legacy that you want to create?
Yeah, certainly. I'd love that smart spaces to transcend just me being the CEO. If it was to live on as one of the brands that people have lived, a multi-generational brand, and be the benchmark for smart real estate, from both occupier satisfaction, but energy efficiency. It's almost like having a badge, on the building. And this is a smart spaces building. You've got peace of mind that building is efficient and optimized, and it's doing its best for the planet, but also working for its purpose. And I think we're undergoing B Corp at the moment, and so much of what we're doing for B Corp is relating to what we do as a business. Like, we've got evidence exactly how much energy we're saving and how much energy we save our customers. And London's now the global leader in B corporations, and there's the highest density at them. And so if everyone becomes a B Corp, that's great for smart spaces in terms of, we will have that legacy because people will have to deploy technology like us to optimize it. But I definitely don't want a business that's just, a lot of CEO founder-led businesses can live and die by the founders. So when me and my brother are doing something else, or like you say, maybe dead.
in a long time, let's be clear.
Yeah, the business is still here, and it's gone to the next level. Like, the next person takes it on. We want to leave a legacy, and would love for Smart Spaces to be one of those brands.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me today. It was great talking to you. Super interesting. Have a great day.
No, thank you. You too.